I've got one from just last year. B23. Stalking innawoods, Arkansas Ozarks, with some new gear I've been saving for months. Boots, tack vests, my fuck even a milsurp gas mask. It was like Christmas. Being where I was, and wanting to field test some personal prototypes, I had Nugget on hand. Wouldn't do much against the big bears, but it'd ruin the day of any snake, stray dog, or cougar. Had a couple of stripper clips and 2 clipazines that I built and wanted to field test in my pouches, some rolled up targets stuck in my loops, and a light complement of survival gear. Compass, topomat, thermoblanket, spare undies, extra bullet, MREs, canteen and camelback, amphetamines, bug spray, rope, spikes, mallet, e-tool, shower powder, baby powder, TP, the works. I've done nothing heretical to my Nugget, I swear. Clipazines are what I call my jerry-rigged magazines I'd custom built from old cannibalized mags and sheet metal. They fit right into any Nugget's feed if you pull the floor plate out. I've also done some Heinlein-esque mods to my gas mask, an airtight, at least now, water feed, but I digress. Basically practicing for the inevitable SHTF situation. I was having a fucking great time romping around the woods, playing with my FOV in the mask, testing the reliability of the clipazines, generally having fun. I wandered next to a creek bed and decided it was time to practice my guerrilla tactics. It was late summer / early fall, so no danger of getting my gear wet in the non-existent stream. Shit was in more danger of getting water damage from my sweat. After triple checking my safety, I proceeded to do a series of scree slides and uphill hustles in full survivalist gear. Needless to say, I got winded right quick. I stood panting in that dry stream bed and decided to check my position with my topo map and compass, so I could set a course for home. In the middle of orienteering myself, I caught wind of a smell. In before blood and copper! It wasn't. At first, I assumed it was sweaty famunda, but the funk quickly evolved into something fucking worse. A dark undercurrent of rot, deep notes of animal musk, a bassy score of raw garbage punctuated by garlicky timpani, and a thick black score of something between skunk and rotten onion sludge, a symphony of stench. And the conductor decided to skip the adagio and drive the opening movement straight into scherzo because that shit was getting stronger. I went into straight operating mode, popped a natty from my pouch for extra focus, pulled the clipazine from my Nugget. It seemed to be working fine, but if I was going to have to shoot something, I'd prefer not to have any risk of jamming. I gagged and nearly puked up the Addy tab. The smell was that strong at this point. Whatever the source was, it was definitely mobile and getting closer. Fuck it. I pulled the mask up from around my neck and pulled it over my face. It helped slightly, but my fucking dumbass waterline wasn't 100% airtight around the joint. I walked cautiously and slowly along the creek bed to where the slope was shallowest, listening for twig snap or animal sounds from above. I definitely heard something shuffling around up there, and sounded bigger than what my Nugget was up for. It was a near-constant snuffle grunt, and sloppy, uncoordinated crunching around bark and leaves. That mixed with the smell, my mind immediately jumped to Big Bear. Rabid Big Bear. Let me tell you about the Ozark Big Bears, straight from my dad's mouth. Dad's lived in the Ozarks for 58 years, and in that time only 2 things have managed to shake him: the challenges of fatherhood and the big bears. According to him, the native black bears were hunted to near extinction between the 40s and 50s. To correct this, the ANRC, NRCS, and Arkansas Fish and Game Commission released 250 bears into the Ozark and Washita Mountains. Their website insists that they were all black bears. My dad insists that this was bullshit. According to him, more than a few of the bears released into the Ozarks had been brown bears, and that they had interbred with the few remaining locals and reintroduced black bears. Thanks to a little phenomenon known as hybrid vigor, the resulting offspring were bigger and meaner than their parents, and fuck me, were also fertile. When I asked him to prove it, he simply left the summer porch, went upstairs, and came back with a manila folder labeled BB. He pulled out a couple Polaroids and asked me to take a look. I saw a big, black and brown something rooting around behind the clothesline. Dad directed my attention to the clothesline about 50 feet away from us, strung between 2 poles about 5-6 off the ground. The same clothesline in the picture. The something's shoulder was about a fart's length under the line, despite being in the goddamn background. I looked through the other pictures. One of them rooting in the trash, another barely concealed by trees, all of them slightly shaky. Detail was hard to come by, but I was convinced. My dad told me 2 things about how to avoid getting my shit shredded by the big bears. 1. Big bears are stupid as shit, something to do with them being hybrids. This makes them more dangerous than other bears because they ain't afraid of you. This also makes them smell like shit, and you'll smell them coming a mile off. If you smell a big bear, get inside and get upstairs, but take the shotgun first and some deer slugs. And 2. If you do see a big bear and you ain't home, or you ain't got a shotgun loaded with slugs, hide. Up a tree if you can. They're faster than you, and it ain't no use running. I tell you all this because after 23 years, I'd finally managed to prove my dad wrong about something. Well, half wrong. There's something in the Ozarks that match my dad's pictures of big bears, but whatever they are, they sure as fuck aren't bears. Back to the woods. I would have stayed in that creek bed and waited for the something to fuck off on its business, but the light was already slanting through the trees, and as bad as my dad made big bears sound, I sure as tits didn't want to be stuck with a goddamn rabbit one after dark. I instead opted to climb up the opposite edge of the creek bed. Had to scramble over some big rock outcroppings and half stand, half lean against the slope of a hill, but I figured if anything that would be one more layer of protection against the something. I had gotten a few glimpses of the something over my shoulder as I climbed, but this was my first good look at it. I just fucking stared. Like I said in my previous post, this wasn't a fucking bear. It was bear-like, but not a bear. I've been into sci-fi my entire life, and even got Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials from my awesome late stepmom. So when I saw the something for my first time, my fucking nerd brain immediately went, oh, a Soulador. Except it wasn't. It looked like a Soulador, a grizzly bear, and a sloth had a three-way on top of a garbage heap to make it. It had a long prognathous snout like a stubby-ass trunk, big angular shoulders, feet that looked like manhole covers covered in dirty matted fur, and a body like a furry blimp. Its fur was the same charcoal black / day-glow brown I saw in the pictures, and full of mats and clumps of dirt. I mean, I fucking stared at it, drinking in the details, trying to make fucking sense of what I was looking at for a solid 2.5 minutes, and it somehow hadn't noticed me. Jesus, these things were dumb. I remember feeling a twinge of relief. If it hadn't noticed me trying to scrabble out of the rocky gully, it wouldn't notice me sneaking away. That was when I farted. The something stopped. My breath stopped. My heart stopped. The only sound in those woods was my fucking fart echoing and the sound of my nose blistering under the something's odoriferous assault. Like slow-mo, the thing turned its head, looked back at me, sniffed the air, and stood up. It had been shuffling around, crouched low to the ground the entire time. What I had thought were its shoulder blades were its fucking elbows. It could tie its shoes without bending down, but its paws probably would have crushed its Air Jordans to bits. They were like trash can lids. It sniffed the air again, and cough-barked like it was asking me a goddamn question. Gorp? I swear on me mum, that's what it fucking sounded like. Gorp. Be me. Be dumb fuck who doesn't listen to his dad. Be awkward cringe lord who fucking farts when he's trying to sneaky breaky away from the goddamn Gorp. Aim for center mass. Fire. The bullet didn't thwack into the Gorp. Because hey, if you're gonna die, might as well give your killer a stupid name in your head, right? As much as it thwumped. There was a puff of dirt and hair when it thwumped, and, bless my luck, the Gorp flinched from the impact. Wait for blood. I guess that Gorps are so covered in nasty, flea-ridden hair mats that over time, their poor hygiene gives them a natural body armor, because that thing didn't fucking bleed. What it did do was rear up and gorth at me. A low growl that my colon decided was a warning because it was producing bricks enough to construct a barricade. I worked the bolt and fired another shot, this time its ugly sloth bear elephant face. This time it thwacked. So did the dirt a dozen feet to the fucker's left because it ricocheted off its fucking skull. The Gorp just stood there, staring at me, like it was too dumb to realize it could have stood up in the stream bed and grabbed me by my face while I pelted it with useless bullet and shit myself. I yelled at it and fired a third shot in any direction at all, trying to scare it off. The Gorp or Gorth or Big Bear or whatever it was dropped to all fours, lurched toward me once, and then did a 360 and shuffled away. It worked. I stood there until the sky turned from blue to orange before I snapped out of it and tactically retreated back home. When I got back, I told my dad everything. I probably should have mentioned that I was visiting him for a few days. Whoops. He could probably smell the Big Bear on me, and it's no use lying to him. When I got to the part about what big bears really were, he refused to believe me. Then he got pissed at me. Then he locked the doors and camped out upstairs for the rest of our visit. I had to fucking bring him beer from downstairs when we wanted to shoot the shit. The weird thing is, as scared as he was, and as weirded out as I was at seeing my dad as spooked as a kid who's seen a skeleton, I wasn't scared. I remember that very clearly. I wasn't scared. I guess you could say I was too interested to be scared. If I was scared, I would have just bolted, and then I'd probably be typing this from the inside of a year-old Gorp turd. If I had to guess, it'd probably be the fucking Adderall I had popped that kept me from switching into run home scared to mama's tit mode. Well, okay, you probably stopped reading 2 posts ago. That's how I met a Gorp and lived. OP, AN here. Have you considered that what you might have saw was a megatherium, or giant ground sloth? They got pretty big, top size being 20 feet, had long arms, and their skin was full of interlocking bones that would have been like natural chainmail. As for the stumpy-ass trunk, It may have either evolved one over time or might have had one all along. Soft tissues don't fossilize, and skin impressions of the face have never been found. They lived in South America as recently as 10,000 years ago, so it's not that much of a stretch that a branch population could exist in the Ozarks today. Some pictures have surfaced that some people think indicates that giant ground sloths still exist in the Appalachians, a habitat not so different from the Ozarks. Here's the Virginia ground sloth picture. It kinda reminds me of your description. Just got back from the store and holy shit, Annan. My fuck, that's a Gorp. That's a Gorp. If you slapped on a dinky tapir trunk, stretched its arms out, and fed it until it swelled up like a curvy land whale, it'd be a Gorp help my fuck, Annan. Like, I'm a pretty paleo nerd, science-brained commando, but that never fucking occurred to me. For the last year or so, I had been convinced that I saw a weird Native American spirit monster, or an escaped government project, or one of those fucking skinwalkers that X is always fapping on about, but holy tits, there are goddamn giant ground sloths living in the Ozarks. I gotta call my dad. Hello everyone, I want to say thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed this story, and remember to subscribe if you want to hear more in the future. Click the bell icon in order to be alerted when I have more stories to tell, and until then, don't fart near the Gorp.